Call me old-fashioned, but despite the rise of the dual-clutch gearbox and despite the ongoing improvement of automatic gearboxes, I'm still a stick-shift person. There's something particularly satisfying about getting the clutch action and the gear shift just right, about blipping the throttle on downshifts. But let's be honest, the days of the manual gearbox are numbered, and cars like the latest Peugeot 308 GT Line Automatic demonstrate why that is.
At face value, there's no reason why this particular Peugeot 308 should demonstrate why two-pedal cars are taking over from their manual gearbox stablemates. After all, the 308 GT Line's dynamics rely on a modest 1.2-litre three-cylinder engine, together with clean aerodynamics and low mass. Conventional wisdom says you'll need an efficient 6-speed manual box to make the most of the little engine's output, and that a torque converter-based auto transmission is simply too inefficient. But as it turns out, that's not the case at all.
Part of the reason is this three-cylinder turbocharged engine delivering 96 kilowatt of maximum power from just 1.2 litres. That equates to 80 kilowatt per litre, which is pretty impressive. But even more impressive is the torque output of 230 newton meters available from just 1,750 RPM.
As it happens, the relatively high power output and fat, flat torque curve make the 3-pot mill a perfect partner for Peugeot's latest E86 6-speed automatic gearbox. Developed by Ace & Warner, the new gearbox is lighter and more efficient than its predecessor, while a quick shift system allows rapid gear changes, especially in sport mode. Peugeot reckons it's more efficient than a dual-clutch gearbox. In addition, the gear ratios are perfectly stacked to make the most of the engine's output and its mid-range tractability.
I usually prefer to change gears manually, even in automatic or dual-clutch gearbox cars. And in fact, a lot of those cars now have shift pedals, which make the process a lot simpler and more intuitive. But unfortunately, the 308 GT Line is not one of those. If you want to change gears manually in this car, you have to use the gear selection lever in sequential mode, and that's not particularly intuitive.
But as it turns out, this engine-gearbox combination is at its best when left to its own devices. The gearbox software recognizes the three-cylinder mill's penchant for low-down torque and does a fine job of gear selection in virtually every situation. And besides, the cog swaps are slick and rapid. Opting for sport mode sharpens the gear changes and allows the engine to rev higher, but in many ways it compromises the drivetrain's smooth composure, and the gains in dynamic reactions are small by comparison. For once, it's best to let the gearbox go about its business and to enjoy the 308's smart, composed handling.
It's worth remembering that the Peugeot 308 is a past winner of the coveted European Car of the Year competition, and the handling of this car is part of the reason. It has a sure-footed confidence about it, which stands it in good stead both on bumpy roads and when you start tackling a couple of twisties. It also feels very solid, very composed, and very reassuring.
Some might feel that the ride is compromised by the 17-inch wheels and 45 profile tyres, but they contribute to the car's overall composure, as well as to the exemplary communication between the chassis and the driver. Performance is brisk, if not hot hatch rapid. Peugeot claims 10.7 seconds for the 0 to 100 dash and a 200 km/h top speed. In practice, the 308 feels quicker though.
The 308's other controversial feature is this driving position, which places a small steering wheel below the instrument cluster. It's an arrangement that actually works quite well in practice, if you're not too tall.
That said, the cabin execution is exemplary as far as tactile quality and finishes are concerned. The 308 feels like a premium car, more Audi than Volkswagen if you like, and the clean, almost minimalist ergonomics are a further high point. I'm not convinced by the touchscreen interface though. It's still a little fiddly to use on the move, and the menu system isn't always intuitive. What it needs is a controller to augment the touchscreen. Overall spec levels are high and there's a full house of safety features.
I was concerned that the automatic gearbox would blunt the inherent sparkle of the Peugeot 308 GT Line, but in fact that's not the case at all. If anything, the gearbox and the engine work together to make the most of the car's dynamic potential. And that, of course, leaves the driver to get on with what's much more important, which of course is driving. The combination makes a lot of sense around town, but it's also pretty effective on the open road. So, as much as I thought that the GT Line Auto might end up being the runt of the 308 litre, it in fact might end up being the pick of the bunch.
A lively engine and slick, quick gearbox combine with a composed chassis to create a compelling argument for automatic motoring. The rest of the package is smart and aspirational too, with premium finishes and high standard spec. But the GT Line Auto is pricier than its rivals, which counts against it in a tough market.